My parents stole $24,000 and kicked me out on my birthday. I took it all back. I exposed their betrayal, reclaiming my life with one bold stand. Will my truth shatter their lies forever? Hi, I'm Amelia Carter. On my 31st birthday, my parents demanded I leave our home after quietly draining $24,000 from my savings over years. A heart-wrenching betrayal that shattered my sense of belonging and ignited a fierce resolve to fight back. I severed their financial lifeline, exposed their deceit in a public stand, and reclaimed my freedom, turning their world upside down with a truth they never saw coming. The autumn evenings in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, sweep through the small town with a crisp, earthy chill, the kind that carries the scent of damp soil and whispers of change, but no breeze could have prepared me for the icy rejection that awaited in the place I'd called home for 31 years. I stood in the dim, cluttered kitchen of our aging two-story house on the outskirts of town, clutching a small vanilla cake I'd bought from a discount bakery, its uneven red icing spelling out happy birthday, Amelia in a clumsy scrawl, a modest token of a day I'd long since stopped expecting to be celebrated. The air was thick with the musty odor of unwashed dishes and the faint hum of a flickering fluorescent light, the silence of the house a stark contrast to the warmth I'd foolishly hoped for, a silence soon shattered by words that cut deeper than any I'd ever heard, words that would propel me into a battle to reclaim everything they'd taken from me, my money, my trust, and my place in the world. I'm a 31-year-old accountant at a modest agricultural supply company in Cedar Rapids. My work a meticulous dance of spreadsheets, budgets, and financial forecasts, a career built through 6 years of unwavering dedication, late nights reconciling accounts, and a quiet pride in keeping businesses afloat. To outsiders, living with my parents in our weathered family home might have painted me as dependent, a grown woman lingering in her childhood bedroom. But for me, it was a duty, a commitment to keep our household running. To my parents, however, it was an obligation I owed them. My stable income, a resource they tapped without question or gratitude. A silent contract I'd upheld without fully understanding its cost. Growing up in our tight-knit Iowa town, I was the responsible daughter, the one who balanced checkbooks, paid bills on time, and planned for emergencies, while my parents, George and Linda, leaned on me to cover their financial gaps: electricity, water, internet, medical bills, even credit card debts they never acknowledged but always expected me to handle. Family gatherings, Thanksgiving dinners crowded with cousins, summer barbecues in the backyard, quiet Christmas evenings by a sagging tree were tense affairs, their conversations dominated by Mom's complaints about her health or Dad's grumbling about work, never touching on my achievements, like the promotion I earned to senior accountant or the financial crises I'd averted for our household by juggling their bills with my modest salary. I was invisible, my role reduced to the one who kept the lights on, my sacrifices unnoticed, my presence tolerated but never cherished, a shadow in a house that felt less like a home with each passing year. I'd always believed that if I gave enough money, time, energy, they'd eventually see me, that my contributions would earn me a place in their hearts, a sense of belonging I craved like air. Over 6 years, I'd poured $24,000 into the family's needs, $300 monthly for electricity, water, and internet, totaling $21,600 plus $1,200 for Dad's dental work after a factory accident cracked his molars, $700 for new tires on Mom's car after a snowstorm left her stranded, countless smaller payments for prescriptions and repairs, each one a sacrifice that chipped away at my dreams, like a data analytics course I'd deferred or a trip to Colorado I'd canceled to stay home and care for Mom during a bout of flu. I never complained, believing it was what family did, my diary a quiet ledger of each transaction, each entry a faint hope for recognition, $300 for utilities this month. Maybe they'll notice. But they didn't. They took it for granted, never offering thanks, never asking about the strain it placed on my $45,000 a year salary, my sacrifices as unseen as the birthday celebrations that had dwindled to nothing over the years. I'd stopped expecting parties, gifts, or even a card. But on my 31st birthday, as I drove home from work under a gray, overcast sky, the wind carrying the first bite of an Iowa winter, I allowed myself a sliver of hope, a simple happy birthday from Mom or Dad, a gesture to warm the chill of being overlooked, a moment to feel like I belonged. That fragile hope was crushed in a moment that would redefine my life. I arrived home after a long day at the office, pulling into the gravel driveway just past Eben 700p. The house dark and uninviting, its faded yellow siding barely visible in the twilight, a single dull light spilling from the living room window. I sat in my car for a moment, clutching the paper bag with the cake, its red icing a small rebellion against the indifference I knew awaited inside, counting the steps to brace myself 3 to the door, 5 to the kitchen, 7 to the stairs, a ritual to steel my heart against the silence. The house was cold when I entered, the heater off, a stack of papers on the dining table catching my eye, a past-due electric bill stamped in bold red, a silent accusation of my role as the family's financial crutch, a role I'd accepted without question until that night. Mom stood at the sink, her back turned, washing dishes with a mechanical rhythm, her gray hair pulled into a tight bun, her silence louder than words. Dad sat at the table, eyes glued to his phone, scrolling through something trivial, not even glancing up as I entered, his weathered face set in a familiar scowl. I nodded, a reflex more than a greeting, and received no response. The air thick with an unspoken tension, a coldness that wasn't just from the unheated room, but from the way Mom avoided my eyes, the way Dad's detachment felt deliberate, the house itself seeming to reject me, as if it had already decided I no longer belonged. I placed the cake on the counter, its red icing smudged from the drive, and poured myself a glass of water, trying to push away the dull ache rising in my chest, telling myself it was fine, that I didn't need a celebration, that their reliance on me, my payments for their bills, their debts was proof of my place, however small. But the ache grew, a quiet realization that their silence wasn't forgetfulness, but indifference, that my birthday wasn't just overlooked but deemed unworthy of acknowledgement. I carried the cake upstairs to my room, a cramped space with a sagging bed and a desk piled with work papers, the act unnoticed by Mom or Dad, their silence a heavy weight that pressed against my heart. I set the cake on the table by the window, its red letters blurring in the dim light, and sat on the edge of my bed, the wind rattling the old panes, whispering truths I'd avoided for years. I wasn't family to them, not in the way that mattered, only a resource to be used, a tenant to be tolerated until they no longer needed me. The confrontation came later that night, as I returned downstairs to put the cake in the fridge, hoping to salvage some semblance of normalcy. I sat at the dining table, picking at a cold green bean from a plate of untouched leftovers, the yellow kitchen light casting harsh shadows across Mom's furrowed brow and Dad's clenched jaw. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the ticking of the wall clock, each second a countdown to something inevitable. Dad's voice finally cut through, not with warmth or acknowledgement, but with a cold, calculated edge. "Do you even know what time it is?" I glanced at the clock, confused. 10. "I came home after work." His tone turned sharp, his eyes narrowing as he leaned back in his chair. "At your age, still crashing here. Don't you think that's a little pathetic?" The word landed like a slap. Mom's silence a tacit endorsement, her hands still over a piece of meat, her knife poised as if ready to carve away my place in the family. I set the cake down on the counter, my heart pounding but my voice steady. Years of suppressed frustration rising to the surface. I'm not crashing here when I pay the power, the internet, even your credit card debt from last year. Dad leaned forward, his voice tightening, his words deliberate. Paying a few bills doesn't mean you get to stay forever. Amelia. This isn't a motel. The air grew heavier, my chest tightening as I pressed. What exactly are you saying? He folded his arms, his gaze unyielding, each word a hammer driving the final nail. We've discussed it, Linda and I. It's time you moved out. Preferably by the end of the week. I turned to Mom, searching for a flicker of hesitation, a sign that this wasn't planned. But her eyes met mine briefly, cold and empty, her faint nod a betrayal that cut deeper than Dad's words, a confirmation that this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision, but a calculated expulsion, a verdict they'd reached long before I walked through the door with my cake. My birthday wasn't just forgotten, it was a deadline, a meticulously planned eviction, a declaration that I was no longer needed, no longer welcome. Despite the $24,000 I'd poured into their lives, $21,600 for utilities over 6 years, $200 for Dad's dental work, $700 for Mom's tires, countless smaller payments that had drained my savings and deferred my dreams. I smiled, not from amusement, but from a twisted, liberating clarity. The truth laid bare I was never truly family, only a financial crutch. A means to an end, my worth measured in dollars, not love. Happy birthday to me, I thought bitterly, my voice calm but resolute as I stood, the cake box in my hands like a relic of a life I was ready to leave behind. If that's how you feel, I'll be gone. But you'll feel what it's like without me. Mom's eyes flickered. Dad's expression hardened, but neither spoke. Their silence a final verdict. The ticking clock marking the end of my role in their world. I walked upstairs, each step echoing louder than their words, the creak of the wooden floor a countdown to my departure, a release from the weight I'd carried for years. In my room, the soft glow of the desk lamp fell over the untouched cake, its red icing now a blurred smear, a symbol of the indifference that had defined my place in this house. I sat on the bed, the wind pressing against the windows, whispering truths I could no longer ignore. I'd given everything money, time, dreams hoping for love, but received only demands. My sacrifices erased, my birthday a convenient moment to discard me. My diary captured the moment in a single, resolute line, scrawled with a steady hand. They threw me out. I'll take everything back. Cedar Rapids' autumn night was cold, the stars above a silent witness to my resolve, a quiet fire igniting within me, their betrayal a deep wound I'd transform into strength, a solemn vow to sever their financial lifeline and reclaim my life, setting the stage for a battle that would expose their lies and affirm my right to exist beyond their control, a fight I hadn't sought but was fully prepared to win. The icy betrayal of being told to leave on my 31st birthday lingered like a winter frost, a wound that forced me to confront the years I'd spent pouring my heart and savings into a family that saw me as little more than a financial lifeline. In my Cedar Rapids apartment, the autumn evening was still, the city's lights twinkling through the open window, casting a warm, golden glow across the hardwood floors. But the air was heavy with the scent of cinnamon tea and the weight of a truth I could no longer deny. My diary lay open on the small, wobbly dining table I'd salvaged from a thrift store, its pages a raw chronicle of that devastating night, Dad's cutting words, Mom's silent complicity, the untouched vanilla cake with its smudged red icing a ledger of the $24,000 I'd sacrificed to keep their lives afloat, urging me to reflect on the decades I'd spent in their shadow, giving everything only to be cast out like an unwanted guest. The echo of Dad's accusation, pathetic, and Mom's faint nod reverberated in my mind, a searing reminder of the favoritism that had defined my role, a painful clarity that crystallized in the cold, dim kitchen of our old 2-story house, setting the stage for a quiet rebellion that would unravel their world and reclaim my own. Growing up in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, I was the dutiful daughter, the one who mastered the art of budgeting and planning, a skill born of necessity in a household where money was always tight and my parents' priorities were anything but stable. At 31, I was an accountant at a modest agricultural supply company. My work, a steady rhythm of spreadsheets and financial forecasts. A career built through 6 years of late nights, meticulous calculations, and a quiet pride in keeping businesses and my family afloat. Family gatherings crowded Thanksgiving dinners with aunts and uncles, summer barbecues in our overgrown backyard. Quiet Christmas evenings with a sagging tree were tense, their conversations dominated by Mom's endless complaints about her arthritis, or Dad's grumbling about his factory days, never touching on my achievements. Like the promotion to senior accountant I'd earned, or the financial juggling I performed to keep our household solvent. My parents, George and Linda, relied on me to cover their expenses: electricity, water, internet, medical bills, even credit card debts without question. Their gratitude as absent as their interest in my life. Mom, a former seamstress with a controlling streak, expected me to handle every crisis, her voice sharp when I hesitated, while Dad, a retired factory worker, avoided conflict, his silence a tacit endorsement of her demands, leaving me to navigate their indifference alone. My role confined to the one who paid the bills, my presence a necessity but never a joy. I'd always believed that if I gave enough money, time, energy, they'd eventually see me, that my sacrifices would earn me a place in their hearts, a sense of belonging I craved like a lifeline. Over 6 years, I'd poured $24,000 into the family's needs, $300 monthly for electricity, water, and internet, totaling $21, $600 plus $200 for Dad's dental work after a factory accident left him with cracked molars, $700 for new tires on Mom's car after a snowstorm stranded her on the freeway, $3, $200 into a shared emergency fund I alone funded, and countless smaller payments for prescriptions, repairs, and debts that drained my savings and deferred my dreams. I'd sacrificed a data analytics course I'd saved for, canceled a trip to Colorado to care for Mom during a bout of flu, even climbed onto our leaking roof in a drizzle to replace shingles myself, my hands bleeding from the sharp edges while Dad sat downstairs with a beer, muttering about crook contractors. Each act was a silent plea for love, my diary, a quiet record of every payment. Every moment I chose their needs over my own 3 cardons for utilities. Maybe they'll notice this time. But they didn't. They took it for granted, never offering thanks, never asking about the strain on my $45,000 a year salary, my sacrifices as unseen as the birthday celebrations that had faded to nothing, the cards and candles replaced by silence. The warmth of family, a distant memory I'd stopped expecting but still yearned for. The confrontation on my 31st birthday was a brutal awakening, a moment that stripped away the illusions I'd clung to, revealing the truth I'd avoided for years. I was not a daughter to them, but a resource, a financial crutch to be used and discarded when no longer needed. I'd arrived home after work, the gray sky heavy with the threat of an Iowa winter, pulling into the gravel driveway with a small vanilla cake from a discount bakery, its red icing a clumsy happy birthday. Amelia, a token I'd bought for myself, a quiet rebellion against the indifference I knew awaited inside. The house was dark, the heater off, a past-due electric bill stamped in bold red on the dining table, a silent accusation of my role as the family's provider, a role I'd accepted without question until that moment. Mom stood at the sink, her back turned, washing dishes with a mechanical rhythm, her gray hair pulled into a tight bun, her silence louder than words, while Dad sat at the table, eyes glued to his phone, scrolling through something trivial, not acknowledging my presence, his weathered face set in a scowl that felt personal, deliberate, a prelude to something I hadn't yet grasped. I placed the cake on the counter, its smudged icing a mirror of my fading hope, and poured a glass of water, trying to push away the dull ache rising in my chest, telling myself it was fine, that I didn't need a celebration, that their reliance on me, my payments for their bills, their debts, was proof of my place, however small. But the ache grew, a quiet realization that their silence wasn't forgetfulness, but indifference, that my birthday wasn't just overlooked but deemed unworthy of acknowledgement, a day as insignificant to them as I'd become. I carried the cake upstairs to my room, a cramped space with a sagging bed, a desk piled with work papers, and a single window rattling in the wind. The act unnoticed by Mom or Dad, their silence a heavy weight that pressed against my heart, confirming what I'd long feared. I was a tenant in their eyes, not a daughter. My contributions a debt they felt entitled to collect without gratitude or reciprocity. The confrontation came later that night, as I returned downstairs to put the cake in the fridge, hoping to salvage some semblance of normalcy, to pretend the silence wasn't a verdict. I sat at the dining table, picking at a cold green bean from a plate of untouched leftovers, the yellow kitchen light casting harsh shadows across Mom's furrowed brow and Dad's clenched jaw, the stew gone cold, the mashed potatoes clumped, the scene a stark tableau of neglect. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the ticking of the wall clock, each second a countdown to something inevitable, a tension I could feel in my bones. Dad's voice finally cut through, not with warmth or acknowledgement, but with a cold, calculated edge that sliced through the quiet. "Do you even know what time it is?" I glanced at the clock, confused by the hostility in his tone yet. "I came home after work." His eyes narrowed, his voice turning sharp as he leaned back in his chair, his words deliberate, each one a blow. "At your age, still crashing here. Don't you think that's a little pathetic?" The word landed like a physical strike, Mom's silence a tacit endorsement, her hands still over a piece of meat, her knife poised as if ready to carve away my place in the family, her stillness a confirmation of his judgment. I set the cake box down on the counter, my heart pounding but my voice steady, years of suppressed frustration rising to the surface, a quiet strength I hadn't known I possessed. I'm not crashing here when I pay the power, the internet, even your credit card debt from last year. Dad leaned forward, his voice tightening, his words a hammer driving the final nail into the fragile bond I'd clung to. "Paying a few bills doesn't mean you get to stay forever, Amelia." "This isn't a motel." The air grew heavier, my chest tightening as I pressed, needing to hear the truth, to strip away the last veil of pretense. "What exactly are you saying?" He folded his arms, his gaze unyielding, each word a deliberate cut, a verdict delivered with the weight of a long-planned decision. "We've discussed it, Linda and I. It's time you moved out. Preferably by the end of the week." I turned to Mom, searching her face for a flicker of hesitation, a sign that this wasn't a coordinated attack, that she might soften or reconsider. But her eyes met mine briefly, cold and empty, devoid of warmth or regret, her faint nod a betrayal that cut deeper than Dad's words, a silent confirmation that this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision but a meticulously planned expulsion, a verdict they'd reached long before I walked through the door with my small, hopeful cake. My birthday wasn't just forgotten, it was a deadline, a calculated moment to discard me, to sever me from the home I'd sustained with my labor and love, a declaration that I was no longer needed, no longer welcome. Despite the $24,000 I'd poured into their lives, $21,600 for utilities over 6 years, $1,200 for Dad's dental work, $700 for Mom's tires, $3,200 in a shared fund I alone funded, countless smaller payments that had drained my savings and deferred my dreams, all erased in their narrative, my worth measured in dollars they felt entitled to collect, not in the love I'd hoped to earn. I smiled, not from amusement, but from a twisted, liberating clarity, a sudden understanding that pierced through the pain. The truth laid bare in their words and silence. I was never truly family to them, only a financial crutch, a means to an end, my contributions a debt they expected without gratitude or reciprocity, my presence a burden they'd grown tired of carrying. Happy birthday to me, I thought bitterly, my voice calm but resolute as I stood, the cake box in my hands like a relic of a life I was ready to leave behind, my words measured but firm, carrying the weight of years of unspoken truth. If that's how you feel, I'll be gone. But you'll feel what it's like to live without me, without the money I've carried you with. Mom's eyes flickered for a moment, a brief shadow of something guilt, fear, or defiance, but she said nothing. Her silence a final verdict, her nod a seal on their decision. Dad's expression hardened, his jaw set, but he offered no rebuttal, no softening, his silence as damning as his words. The ticking of the wall clock marking the end of my role in their world, each second a step toward my liberation. I walked upstairs, each step echoing louder than their words, the creak of the wooden floor a countdown to my departure, a release from the weight I'd carried for years, the weight of their expectations, their demands, their indifference. In my room, the soft glow of the desk lamp fell over the untouched vanilla cake, its red icing now a blurred smear, a symbol of the indifference that had defined my place in this house, a reminder of the love I'd sought but never received. I sat on the edge of my bed, the wind pressing against the rattling windows, whispering truths I could no longer ignore. I'd given everything money, time, dreams hoping for love, but received only demands, my sacrifices erased, my birthday a convenient moment to discard me, a moment they'd planned with cold precision, a moment that revealed their true colors. My diary captured the moment in a single, resolute line, scrawled with a steady hand, the ink dark and deliberate. They threw me out on my birthday. I'll take everything back. Cedar Rapids' autumn night was cold, the stars above a silent witness to the fire igniting within me, a quiet resolve that burned brighter than their betrayal, a strength born of years of being overlooked, dismissed, and taken for granted. Their rejection was a deep wound, a scar that would linger, but it was also a catalyst, a spark that would fuel my rebellion, a vow to sever their financial lifeline and reclaim my life, my money, my dignity, everything they'd taken for granted. I didn't know then that their next move, a vicious public smear campaign, would escalate the battle, pushing me to confront their lies with a truth that would resonate far beyond the walls of our small Iowa town. A truth that would expose their deceit and affirm my right to exist beyond their control. But as I sat in my room, the cake's blurred icing a mirror of the life I was leaving behind, I felt a shift, a clarity that replaced the pain, a determination to fight for the life I deserved, a life where my worth wasn't measured in dollars or silence, but in the strength I'd found to stand up, to say no, to walk away. The battle had begun, and I was ready. My resolve a quiet fire that would burn through their lies, a fight I hadn't sought but was fully prepared to win, a fight that would redefine me, not as their daughter, but as Amelia Carter, a woman who chose herself. The betrayal of being expelled from my family home on my 31st birthday was a wound that cut deep, but it was also a clarion call. A moment that stripped away the illusions of love and duty, propelling me into a quiet rebellion that would sever the financial ties binding me to my parents' control. In my Cedar Rapids apartment, the autumn morning was crisp and clear, the sunlight streaming through the single window, casting a golden glow across the hardwood floors, illuminating the modest space I'd claimed as my own, a thrift store table, a faded armchair, a tilted lamp that bathed the room in a gentle warmth. The air was thick with the scent of freshly brewed coffee, a light roast I'd bought for myself, a small act of self-care, but it carried the weight of a decision that had changed everything, A decision to reclaim the $24,000 I'd poured into my parents' lives. My diary lay open on the table, its pages a raw testament to that devastating night Dad's cold demand to leave, Mom's silent nod, the untouched vanilla cake with its smudged red icing urging me to stand firm, to protect my future against a family that had exploited me for years. The memory of Dad's accusation, pathetic, and Mom's complicity lingered, a searing pain that fueled my resolve, a choice to cut their financial lifeline that plunged their world into chaos and provoked a vicious counterattack, setting the stage for a public reckoning that would expose their lies and affirm my strength in a way they'd never anticipated. The confrontation on my birthday had been a brutal awakening, a moment that shattered the fragile hope I'd clung to, revealing the truth I'd avoided for years. I was not a daughter to my parents, but a resource, a financial crutch to be used and discarded when they deemed me no longer useful. I'd arrived home that evening, the gray Iowa sky heavy with the threat of winter, pulling into the gravel driveway with a small vanilla cake from a discount bakery, its red icing spelling out "Happy Birthday, Amelia," a quiet gesture of self-acknowledgement in a house where celebrations had long since ceased. The house was dark, the heater off, a past-due electric bill stamped in bold red on the dining table, a silent accusation of my role as the family's provider, a role I'd accepted without question until that moment. Mom stood at the sink, her back turned, washing dishes with a mechanical rhythm, her silence a wall, while Dad sat at the table, eyes glued to his phone, not acknowledging my presence, his silence a prelude to their verdict. I placed the cake on the counter, poured a glass of water, and tried to ignore the ache in my chest, telling myself it was fine, that I didn't need a celebration, that their reliance on me, my payments for their bills, their debts was proof of my place, however small, a fragile hope that crumbled under the weight of their words. The confrontation came as I sat at the table, picking at a cold green bean, the yellow kitchen light casting harsh shadows across Mom's furrowed brow and Dad's clenched jaw, the silence broken by Dad's voice, cold and cutting. "Do you even know what time it is?" I glanced at the clock, confused. 9:10. I came home after work. His tone turned sharp, his eyes narrowing. "At your age, still crashing here. Don't you think that's pathetic?" Mom's silence was a tacit endorsement, her hands still over a piece of meat, her knife poised, a gesture that felt like a prelude to carving me out of their lives. I set the cake down, my heart pounding but my voice steady. Years of frustration rising. I'm not crashing when I pay the power, the internet, even your credit card debt from last year. Dad leaned forward, his voice tightening. "Paying a few bills doesn't mean you stay forever, Amelia." "This isn't a motel." My chest tightened, the air heavy as I pressed. "What are you saying?" He folded his arms, his words a hammer. "We've discussed it, Linda and I. It's time you moved out. By the end of the week." Mom's faint nod, her eyes cold and empty, was a betrayal that cut deeper than Dad's demand, a confirmation that this wasn't impulsive but planned, a calculated eviction timed for my birthday, a day they'd chosen to discard me, to sever me from the home I'd sustained, with $24,000, $21, $600 for utilities over 6 years, $1, $200 for Dad's dental work, $700 for Mom's tires, $3, down $200 in a shared fund I alone funded. My smile was not amusement but a twisted clarity. The truth laid bare. I was never family, only a financial crutch, my worth measured in dollars, not love. "If that's how you feel, I'll be gone," I said, my voice calm but resolute. "But you'll feel what it's like without me." Their silence was a verdict, the ticking clock marking the end of my role, my diary noting they planned this. I'll take it all back. That night, as the house slept, I sat at my desk, the glow of my laptop casting shadows across the room, and logged into every service account under my name: electricity, water, gas, internet, cable, car insurance, a digital ledger of the life I'd sustained for them. With a steady hand, I canceled each auto payment, the notifications flashing across the screen, auto payment disabled. I removed their cars from our bundled insurance policy, selecting ending support for non-household members, a deliberate severance of the threads I'd woven to hold them together. The $3,200 emergency fund, a shared account I'd funded alone, was frozen, my legal right exercised without hesitation, the system confirming account frozen. No transactions permitted without both parties' consent. The silence of the house mirrored my calm, a quiet resolve settling over me, my diary capturing the moment in a single line. I've cut their lifeline. I'm free! The fallout came swiftly, my phone buzzing with frantic messages the next morning. Mom, the internet's down. Amelia, fix it. Dad, power's out. Call the provider now. Mom again, her tone shifting to accusation. What did you do? This is selfish. I didn't respond, their panic a stark confirmation of their reliance, my silence a shield against their demands, a refusal to bend to the guilt they'd wielded for years. I drove to the Cedar Rapids Public Library, a quiet sanctuary with rows of books and humming computers, and printed records of every transaction I'd made for them: utility bills, insurance payments, $8,000 for their credit card debt, $5,000 for medical bills, $3,000 for Mom's car insurance, $2,000 for roof repairs, organizing them in a blue folder labeled "What I Carried for a Family That Never Claimed Me," a testament to my sacrifices, a shield against the lies I knew they'd spin. My diary noted, "This is my proof. They can't erase me." I packed 2 suitcases: clothes, my laptop, personal documents, a small jar of lotion Mom once liked, the photo of the birthday cake with its blurred red icing, a relic of the day they'd chosen to discard me. As I pulled the suitcase downstairs, Mom stood at the sink, drying a glass, her back turned, her silence a final act of rejection. Dad sat in front of the TV, his eyes fixed on the screen, not acknowledging my departure, his indifference a confirmation of their verdict. "I'll be gone in a few days," I said, my voice steady, the words hanging in the air, unanswered, the ticking clock a metronome to my exit. I stepped into the cold Iowa night, the stars above a silent witness to my resolve, the gravel crunching under my feet as I walked to my car, a quiet fire igniting within me, a strength born of years of being overlooked and exploited. Cedar Rapids' autumn dawn was a canvas of possibility, the city's quiet hum a backdrop to the life I was determined to reclaim, a life where my worth wasn't measured in dollars or silence, but in the courage to stand up, to say no, to walk away. Their betrayal was a deep wound, a scar that would linger, but it was also a catalyst, a spark that fueled my rebellion, a vow to let their world unravel without my support, to reclaim the $24,000 I'd given $21,600 for utilities, $1, $200 for Dad's dental work, $700 for Mom's tires, $3, $200 in the fund, and the dreams I'd deferred for their sake. I didn't know then that their next move, a vicious public smear campaign accusing me of abandoning them, would escalate the battle, pushing me to confront their lies with a truth that would resonate far beyond the confines of our small Iowa town, a truth that would expose their deceit and affirm my right to exist beyond their control, a fight that would redefine me as a woman who chose herself, not their daughter, but Amelia Carter, unbroken and free. The chaos I unleashed by cutting my parents' financial support was a deliberate act of liberation, but it provoked a vicious public attack that forced me to confront their lies with a truth that would shift the narrative and expose their deceit to our small Iowa town. In my Cedar Rapids apartment, the autumn evening was calm, the city's lights glimmering through the single window, casting a soft golden glow across the hardwood floors, illuminating the modest space I'd carved out as my own, a thrift store table cluttered with coffee mugs, a faded armchair that creaked under my weight, a tilted lamp that bathed the room in a gentle warmth. The air was heavy with the scent of roasted coffee and the tension of an escalating battle, a fight I hadn't sought but was determined to win. My diary lay open on the table, its pages a raw testament to the fallout of my rebellion, Mom's frantic texts, Dad's threatening messages, the $24,000 I'd reclaimed by canceling their services and freezing their fund, urging me to stand firm as my parents smeared me online. A desperate attempt to paint me as the villain in their carefully crafted narrative. The memory of their birthday betrayal moved out by the end of the week, and their cold silence burned in my mind, a wound that fueled my resolve, but their public post accusing me of abandoning them pushed me to respond with a calculated counterstrike, a meticulously documented truth that rallied a community and affirmed my worth in a way they'd never anticipated, setting the stage for a legal battle that would cement my freedom. The birthday expulsion had been a devastating blow, Dad's demand to leave and Mom's silent nod shattering the illusions I'd clung to. Despite the $24,000 I'd poured into their lives, $20 $600 for utilities over 6 years, $200 for Dad's dental work, $700 for Mom's car tires, $200 in a shared emergency fund, I alone funded. $8,000 for their credit card debt, $5,000 for medical bills. My rebellion canceling their electricity, water, gas, internet, cable, car insurance, and freezing the fund had plunged their world into chaos, their messages flooding my phone with demands. Mom's fix the internet. Dad's power's out. Call now, and Mom's accusatory. What did you do? I'd ignored them. My silence a shield, my diary noting they're exposed. I won't bend. I'd packed my belongings, clothes, laptop, documents, the photo of the birthday cake, and left, their silence as I walked out a final confirmation of their indifference. My resolve a quiet fire that burned brighter with each step away from their control. 3 days later, as I sat in a coffee shop with my friend Nora, sipping a light roast and discussing my new apartment, my phone buzzed with a flurry of messages from old acquaintances, neighbors, even a former coworker, Amelia. Have you seen your dad's post? My heart sank, a knot forming in my stomach as I opened the Cedar Rapids Community Facebook group, a digital town square where locals shared everything from garage sales to gossip. At the top was a post by George Carter, my father, in bold, unpunctuated all caps, when your child becomes your betrayer. The words hit like a punch, each sentence a carefully crafted lie designed to destroy my reputation. We gave her everything we had. Years of sacrifice, not a single complaint. And now, in our twilight years, we've been abandoned with no power, no water, denied access to medicine. Attached was a staged photo of Mom, Linda, sitting under a blanket in a darkened living room, her head bowed in theatrical sorrow, a calculated image meant to evoke pity and outrage. The comments poured in, a chorus of condemnation from strangers and distant relatives. Kids these days are heartless. No parent deserves this. Praying for you, George and Linda. My diary captured the moment, the ink sharp and deliberate. They're lying to the world. I'll set the truth free. I spent that night in my apartment, the glow of my laptop casting shadows across the room, compiling the evidence I'd gathered in my blue folder, a meticulously organized record of every sacrifice I'd made for them. The folder held utility bills, bank transfer receipts, payment confirmations, emails, and a photo of me repairing the roof in the rain, my hands bleeding from the shingles, a snapshot taken by our neighbor, Mr. Walters, as he walked his dog. I opened a blank document and began writing, not with anger, but with precision, a financial audit of my heart. I'm not the ungrateful daughter they claim I am. I listed every payment: February 2022, $384,000, $20 for electricity during a brutal winter. July 2021, $679 for Mom's tires and $113 for towing. 2020, $2,000 for roof materials I installed myself. $1 $200 for Dad's dental work, $700 for Mom's car insurance, $5,000 for medical bills, $8,000 for their credit card debt, $3, $200 in the shared fund, all mine. For 6 years, every utility $300 monthly, $21,600 total was under my name, paid without fail, without thanks. I attached scans of the bills, screenshots of bank emails, the roof photo, and ended with a quiet truth. I'm not angry they kicked me out. I'm hurt they forgot I kept our home standing for nearly a decade. If they choose lies for sympathy, I choose truth for freedom. I posted it to the Cedar Rapids community group at 437A. Mom. Nah, is my heart steady? My diary noting truth is my weapon. Let it speak. By noon, the post had over 120 shares, comments flooding in from neighbors, teachers, shop owners who'd witnessed my sacrifices, Mr. Walters wrote. I saw Amelia fix that roof in the rain. Her parents never checked on her. My high school teacher, Mrs. Hilda, added, Sophia was always quiet about home. Now I see why, the grocery store owner noted. She delayed her own bill to pay for their plumbing. The narrative shifted. Dad's post drowned out, deleted without explanation. My diary capturing the truth won. They can't hide. Their lies had backfired. The community's support a validation of my worth. A chorus that silenced their accusations and affirmed the sacrifices they'd erased. Their retaliation came swiftly, a desperate escalation that revealed their refusal to accept defeat. A week later, I received a summons from Black Hawk County Court, a civil suit filed by George and Linda Carter alleging elder abuse, family abandonment, and dereliction of duty, a legal maneuver dressed in manipulative language, accusing me of neglecting their basic needs by cutting their services. I laughed, not from amusement, but from a weary recognition of their tactics, knowing their claims were baseless, my evidence ironclad. At the Cedar Rapids police station, with Jenny, a lawyer from a Des Moines nonprofit, I faced Mom and Dad, their faces a mix of defiance and feigned victimhood, Mom fidgeting with a tissue, Dad scrolling his phone, avoiding my gaze. Officer Scott Raymond, a calm, seasoned lieutenant, reviewed my blue folder bills, emails, photos, bank transfers, his eyes lingering on an email from Mom Amelia. Pay the gas bill ASAP. He turned to my parents, his voice steady. Filing a false complaint with intent to harm is defamation. Grounds for a countersuit. Mom's head dropped. Dad's grip tightened, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. My diary noting they're exposed. I'll finish this. I filed a countersuit for financial abuse and psychological coercion. Jenny's voice firm. Your evidence is overwhelming, Amelia. They exploited you for years. The officer signed the report, sliding it across the desk, his respect clear. I admire your stand. I walked out, the autumn sun warm on my face, Nora waiting in the car, her smile a quiet affirmation. My resolve was a quiet fire, their smear a wound transformed into strength, a vow to let truth prevail, a fight that would affirm my freedom and expose their lies to the world, a battle I was ready to win, not for revenge, but for the right to live free, to be Amelia Carter, not their daughter, but a woman who chose herself. The public triumph over my parents' smear campaign was a turning point, their lies collapsing under the weight of a truth I'd laid bare, freeing me to build a life of peace and self-affirmation, unburdened by their toxic control. In my Cedar Rapids apartment, a modest third-floor haven with chipped paint and a small balcony overlooking a laundromat, the autumn morning was serene, the sunlight streaming through the window, casting a golden glow across the hardwood floors. Illuminating the thrift store furniture, a wobbly table stabilized with old books, a faded armchair, a tilted lamp that marked my new beginning. The air was fragrant with the scent of cinnamon coffee, a ritual of self-care brewed from Guatemalan beans I'd bought for myself, a small luxury that felt like a declaration of worth. My diary lay open on the table, its pages a testament to my journey through betrayal, rebellion, and victory the birthday expulsion, the 24,000 reclaimed, the public counterstrike, the legal stand urging me to savor the peace I'd earned, to live fully in a world where my value wasn't tied to their demands. The memory of Dad's pathetic and Mom's silent nod lingered like a fading scar. But the community's support and the quiet strength of my new life affirmed my worth. A victory that spoke louder than their lies. A truth that needed no apology. Only the courage to choose myself. A choice that redefined me as Amelia Carter. A woman who stood unbroken and free. The birthday betrayal had been a devastating blow. Dad's demand to leave move out by the end of the week and Mom's faint nod shattering the illusions of family. Despite the $24,000 I'd given them $21 to $600 for utilities over 6 years, $1 $200 for Dad's dental work, $700 for Mom's tires, $3 and $200 in a shared fund, $8,000 for their credit card debt, $5,000 for medical bills. My rebellion canceling their electricity, water, gas, internet, cable, car insurance, and freezing the fund had plunged their world into chaos. Their frantic messages fixed the power. What did you do met with my silence, a refusal to bend to their guilt, my diary noting they feel the cost now. I'm done. Their Facebook smear, accusing me of abandoning them, was a desperate lie, countered by my post detailing every payment, supported by neighbors, teachers, and shop owners who'd witnessed my sacrifices, collapsing their narrative and forcing Dad to delete his post. My diary capturing the truth won. They're exposed. Their lawsuit for elder abuse was a final gambit, met with my countersuit for financial abuse. Jenny's evidence bills, emails, photos silencing their claims, the officer's warning of defamation a blow they couldn't dodge, my diary affirming I fought. I'm free. I moved to this apartment in early November, a third-floor walk-up with no elevator, its chipped paint and small balcony a canvas for my rebirth, a space I filled with thrift store finds, a wobbly table I stabilized with old novels, a faded armchair that creaked warmly, a vintage lamp with a tilted shade that cast a gentle glow, curtains I sewed myself, a soft blue paint I rolled onto the walls over a weekend, the smell of fresh paint lingering like a promise of renewal. Each piece was a symbol of my independence, a declaration that this space, however small, was mine. Not a corner of my parents' house where I'd shrunk to fit their demands, but a home where every scuffed corner bore the mark of my journey, my diary noting this is mine. I belong here. I furnished it slowly, visiting thrift stores after work, haggling for a $20 table, a $15 lamp, a $10 chair, each purchase a small victory, a step toward a life built on my terms, not theirs, a life where I could breathe without the weight of their expectations pressing down on me. Mom's voicemails piled up 8 unanswered, her tone shifting from pleading to accusatory Amelia. We're struggling. Talk to us. Dad's texts were sharper, threatening, you'll regret this stunt. Don't come crawling back. I didn't respond, their words powerless, their $24,000 from me, $10,000 for Mom's bills, $6,000 for Dad's repairs, $3,000 for insurance forgotten in their narrative. Their regret, a hollow echo of their entitlement. My diary noting, their chaos isn't my burden. I choose peace. My cousin Rachel called, her voice soft. They're borrowing money, no power, blaming you. They regret it, but won't say it. I thanked her, but stayed firm, choosing not to engage. My diary capturing their regret is theirs. I'm building my life. I landed a job at a local nonprofit. My budgeting skills, honed by years of managing their finances, now a professional asset. My mornings spent sipping cinnamon coffee on the balcony, watching the traffic below, journaling small victories, fixed a faucet with a $3 screwdriver. Cooked spicy Thai noodles, not too salty. Each entry was a marker of progress, a sign of a woman learning to live for herself, not just to keep others afloat. My diary, a quiet celebration of the life I was crafting, one choice at a time. The community's support lingered, a warmth that contrasted with my parents' coldness. Mr. Walters, the neighbor who'd photographed me on the roof, sent a note. You did right. Amelia. My high school teacher, Mrs. Hilda, emailed, I'm proud of you. The grocery store owner stopped me. You're stronger than they know. Their words were a balm, a validation of the sacrifices they'd witnessed, a chorus that drowned out my parents' lies and affirmed my worth. My diary noting I'm not alone. Truth has allies. One night, I found an unmarked card in my mailbox. You were never the problem. Some people fear those they can't control. I pinned it to my wall, a reminder that others had seen me, even in my silence. Their quiet support, a contrast to the family that had discarded me, a family I no longer needed to define me. A single birthday candle from last year, meant for the cake I'd never eaten, now rested on my bookshelf next to a hand-drawn painting from my college days, a relic of the moment I'd chosen to stand, not sink. I lit it one evening, the tiny flame flickering against the blue wall I'd painted, casting a gentle glow that felt like a promise. I didn't make a wish, didn't need to. I whispered instead, my voice soft but steady. Thank you for not giving up, Amelia. The candle's light was small, but it was mine, a symbol of the strength I'd found, the life I'd built, the freedom I'd claimed. My diary captured the moment I'm whole. I chose myself. Cedar Rapids' autumn dawn was bright, the city's quiet hum a backdrop to the life I'd fought for, a life built on truth, resilience, and the courage to walk away. My resolve a quiet fire that burned through their lies, a triumph that needed no apology, only the peace of knowing I was enough. A woman who'd reclaimed her worth, not as their daughter, but as Amelia Carter, unbroken, unshackled, and free.